New stuff coming in. This just came out last week, The Beat. I saw the tour last year when it came around. I took my son Evan. Fantastic. I mean, I got a lot of history with this. When the three King Crimson albums of the 80s came out, when this came out in 81, you know those records where you think you're cool because you own it? Well, this record, I thought I was cool and still do because I had it in 81, and this is my original copy from 81. You know, anybody familiar with this stuff, Adrian Belew joining Fripp and this great rhythm section of Tony Levin and Bill Bruford. Bill Bruford from Yes. Tony Levin was playing with Peter Gabriel before this. Robert Fripp, enough said, King Crimson. And Adrian Belew was like the fun, jovial guy in a very serious room. I was a fan of Crimson before the 80s trilogy, the blue, the yellow, and the red. But when this came out, I mean, wow, nobody sounded like this. So I saw them in that incarnation in the 80s a few times, and then later in the early 90s, Robert Fripp made it a double trio. So it was Adrian fronting a bass and a drummer, and Robert fronting a bass and a drummer together on stage. That was wonderful. So anyway, when this was announced, The Beat, it's essentially, it's Tony Levin and Adrian Belew with Steve Vai taking the place of Robert Fripp, who had Robert Fripp's blessing, and Danny Carey from Tool on drums. Wasn't as familiar with him, but he really delivered. And this is great. And what a history. It pushes all my emotional buttons. I had Adrian Belew, starting with Frank Zappa. I'm a huge Zappa fan. And then moving on to David Bowie. There's a great story about how Bowie courted him. Some of Bowie's people went to see Zappa in London and said, you got to check this guy out. And Bowie took Belew out to dinner while he was still working for Zappa. And Zappa happened to go to that restaurant that night. Anyway, and then Belew winds up with the Talking Heads, and then he's with King Crimson, and what a resume. And Steve Vai was the guy who replaced Adrian Belew in Frank Zappa's band, so I was a huge Steve Vai fan as a kid. Didn't follow a lot of his solo stuff because I'm not a big Shredder fan, but I do think he's one of the most interesting Shredders, probably because who he is in his history with Frank Zappa. Anyway, so they announced this. I went and saw it. It's fantastic. It's a 3-record set. And Steve Vai plays it a little different. Nobody can really play Robert Fripp's stuff, but he does his best, lends his own voice to it, so you can definitely hear him coming through in the music. It works perfectly, and the sound quality is fantastic on this. So highly recommended for prog fans, King Crimson fans, and anyone else who wants to give it a shot. Next up, this is a weird album, Black Devil Disco Club. It's electronic disco by Bernard Fevre. He has put out a few albums of library music from the early 70s. He's European. And so that's what caught my attention. What also caught my attention was Richard James of Aphex Twin was an early fan of this record and played it at his DJ gigs. And a label he co-founded, Reflex Records, they re-released this in 2004. It's similar to Giorgio Moroder. It's synth-heavy Eurodisco, and it was made in the suburbs of Paris in the late 70s using only synthesizers, tape loops, and a drummer. It's spacey, it's dark, it's darker than most disco, and that's the whole reason I bought it. My only complaint is one song on each side, and it's only a 6-track EP. This came out in 78. One song on each side. It's got these kind of wimpy, half-spoken, half-sung vocals, which I could really do without. Does it bother me enough to return to try to resell it on Discogs and get it out of here so I have more space for more stuff? I think I'm going to hold on to it because the tracks without vocals are really nice, and they're it's dark electronic disco is what it is. So holding on to that. Next up, Al Garcia and the Rhythm Kings. It's a surf record. It's Latin surf and soul combo. So I think the soul part comes from some of there's sax on here, which is a consideration with surf. You've either got surf with horns or surf without horns. Those are pretty much your two options in surf. And this has horns. It's all instrumental, all killer, no filler. And there are some Latin sounding influences on a few tracks. Others you wouldn't know the difference. But a nice addition to the surf collection. Kev Darge, Legendary Funk. I picked this up at Soma Sounds the other week. It was under $10, and it's excellent. It's deep funk to me is, and I kind of looked it up and did a little research. I think there was a deep funk scene in Europe in the late 90s. To me, it's anything that wasn't James Brown or Parliament. It's just obscure records that people found. Probably it was a one-off. It'd be impossible to track all these records down. He was a Scottish DJ and record collector, and he put out this obscure rare funk stuff. It's hard funk, raw, heavy, big grooves. There's 3 volumes of this. I've got this one, and I suspect the other 2 are going to make their way into the vinyl sanctuary before year's end. Really good. I played this like 2 or 3 times. One of my favorite artists on here, never heard of him before, Judge Suds and the Soul Detergents. That name alone is worth the price of admission. So excellent comp, and I highly recommend it. Like I said, there's 2 others. I don't know if you'll be so lucky to come across one for under 10 bucks like I did, but Discogs has all 3, multiple copies for sale. Finally, steel guitar, Speedy West steel guitar. It came out in 1960. He's probably the best steel guitar player in country music, period. He's played on thousands of sessions. Half of his records are with his partner, Jimmy Bryant. Jimmy Bryant's a Telecaster player, and he was an adventurer player. At times sounded experimental. Even today, I mean, it sounds advanced and very cutting edge. They were both hotshots with jazz chops, and they were kind of the Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie of country, Speedy West and Jimmy Bryant. And if I could easily, there was a CD box set called Flaming Guitars that Bear Family put out. I think it's a 4 CD set I have, and that's everything you need by Speedy and Jimmy, and it's fantastic stuff. You can find the albums too. They run around 30, 40 bucks online. And here is the first Speedy and Jimmy album. I found this in a bookstore in, I forget where. Fastest guitar player in country, Jimmy Bryant. His solo records are excellent as well. Country Cabin Jazz, Jimmy Bryant, well worth getting. And Laughing Guitar, Crying Guitar. That's probably the best cover of all of them, Jimmy Bryant. So their solo stuff's great. Together, fantastic. And back to the Keb Darge funk stuff. 16, just 3 funk compilations I'm a big fan of. 16 Funky Corners, a lot of people probably know this one. Excellent if you don't. Cold Heat, Heavy Funk Rarities from 68 74. Fantastic. And finally, Movements. I picked this up, and this is, you know, it's early 70s funk. I think there's several volumes of Movements. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to, I think when I casually looked this up like a year ago, whoever compiled this has numerous volumes. So there's my next adventure. Thanks.